the only way that I see them hitting some level of S curve is one of two things. Of course, the government side, they get some really big contracts, but then there's that always that X factor in that everything that everything that they're doing right now, working with clients, learning, blah blah blah. What if tomorrow they came up with a product that's highly scalable, that's able to be integrated very quickly. Companies can just come and get into it, whatever, and then it ends up being a successful smash hit, and people get in. Like something like, and this is the one that excites me a lot is Apollo, right? I don't know what the growth trajectory of Apollo is going to look like because they don't break out the numbers in Apollo and all this other stuff. But if that product is as scalable as some of this stuff that I'm hearing in the background, and that ends up being a core commercial offering that they can offer outside of just Foundry and Gotham stuff, and it's something that's super scalable, something easily integratable at a price point that's super affordable, and that becomes like a default thing for a lot of companies, that could be a huge growth driver for them. So that's always the biggest X factor with Palantir, in that if they release a new product that becomes an industry standard and it just super scalable, that would drive the stock to the moon. But as of right now, I don't see that happening just yet. But who knows? These guys are some of the smartest software engineers on the planet. I'm sure that they're figuring out things that we don't even know, you know.
I'm with Chris on that. I think he's bullish on Apollo, and so am I. Mainly because I mean, I'm driving this FSD Tesla car every day, and it's like not a small drive. It's 2.5 hours, and I see what happens to data and how it improves. And if they can find ways like Apollo does, being able to make this car smarter without needing to kind of connect to its main database for upgrades, that's a huge benefit on Tesla's side as well. So if you believe in robotics, AI, and autonomy, Apollo is that software piece that actually adds to it. And the fact that they're using it in the military should be the conviction that this product actually works. Um, but how much, like I don't have too many details on that, like how much it's being used. But I mean, yeah, data, AI, robotics.
Speaking of military, let me share a quick clip, Grogu, and then you can comment on this. This is actually on your Twitter. If you guys are not following him on Twitter, please make sure to follow him. This is Carp for 50 seconds talking about the difference between theoretical and philosophical practices in philosophy. And I want this to transition us into a discussion about the military application of AI. The Financial Times just wrote a piece on Palantir and their use of AI. So we'll get into that discussion after.
Hold on. Let me go grab a joint real quick. Okay, go ahead, Alex. Tell us all about it.
We are never going to get Carp on this podcast with you saying things like this. It's just not going to happen.
Please. I don't care about him joining the podcast. I want to join him, just get high. And I don't smoke, by the way.
I care about him joining the podcast. I would like that. That would be a good day.
What? I think he does smoke.
Yeah.
Dude, wait, you're allowed to smoke as the CEO of a Fortune 500? Like, that's...
I mean, a joint here and there. I mean, Elon smokes, like nobody cares, right?
But he's Elon.
Right? Dude, I would be very surprised if Sham wasn't doing a couple of lines of coke before.
Oh my goodness.
He's like, all right, let's go. Let's go. Connective tissue, baby. Let's go.
Let's invest in all these SPACs.
Let's go.
Sham is too focused. I doubt it.
No, Sham is definitely tripping on Addies, bro. He's like popping Addies like all right, let's go. Let's talk about this connective tissue, man.
All right, here's Carp.
They get bombarded by various software products.
Hey, turn the volume up.
Been used in the battlefield.
Did the volume? Oh, there it is. Okay, got it. Okay, good.
You're going to get bombarded by various software products. Has the software ever been used in the battlefield? Should be the first question. Software is not a theoretical thing. I spent the first part of my life as an academic. There are a lot of theoretically relevant questions. The first question in a software context is, who's used it? How have they used it? What are the results? You can't, these things take 5-6 years to build if you're very good at it. And you need access to the battlefield. Like, you can't build these things in a lab. So one of the advantages, quite frankly, we've had is we've been on the battlefield. Why have we had that advantage? It's one of these bug feature things, because everyone in the Silicon Valley was bereft of common sense. They were busy exporting things to adversaries and corroding our system with carcinogens in the context of the consumer internet. So we got access to the battlefield.
Now, this is really cool because this was a point. I'm actually doing a video on this tomorrow. this idea that Google, one of the biggest tech companies in the world, Facebook, Amazon, all of them guys, Snapchat, their goal for the past 2 decades was to figure out how to get 1 billion users, 2 billion users, whatever, and then monetize the crap out of all of their attention with ads. And as a result of that, Palantir is one of the only tech companies that spent the past 15 years failing to come up with software that not only protected civil liberties, but obviously was operational on the battlefield, because the big guys and Google, as a result of not accepting Project Maven, just decided to ignore it because their search business was doing so well. So, I mean, what do you guys think about that concept of, because the consumer internet was taking over, Palantir got an opportunity to essentially have a monopoly on building real battle-tested software, and that being a potential S-curve of military AI applications, because maybe ChatGPT is not the AI revolution. Maybe it is operationalizing it on the battlefield.
I think there are points where they should have pivoted a little bit early on in their business, but they chose not to because they wanted to focus on this. Like there's a level of patriotism that Palantir has that not many other companies do. Like it's hard to be Palantir when it comes to, like, think about it this way. They work their butts off to try to get all these clients to show off their products, do all this other stuff, but they've never lost focus with trying to support America and the Western interests. Like they could have easily said, you know what, screw this government shit in 2012. The government barely is trying to change themselves. We don't need to work with them. We can just create commercial products and sell them to the enterprise, and that's it. Don't worry about the government. Screw the government. But they never did that. They stayed with it. And there's a level of like patriotism that this company has that not many other companies do.
But they also knew it was good business. They also knew government revenue was sticky. I mean, they
no. Government business, dude, I'll be straight with you guys. Government sucks to do business with. I
but
know
just
a lot
having that, Chris.
No.
I'm
telling you,
it's $3.6 billion of deal value. Like
they had to fight all the way through their entire existence to get that little piece of the pie. One of the reasons why you have a lot of SaaS companies don't want to work with the government is because these guys are always have like these onerous contract terms. They get paid irregularly. Like, dude, you can't, if you're trying to be a government contractor is very difficult. Like, look at the largest software vendor for the government right now. It's Leidos, right? Look at Leidos and what they're trading at and how much money they're getting revenue from the government. It's crazy. It's if you saw that, you would, the valuation, like, it's just terrible. The return, the margins are horrible. So government is not the place that you typically want to be, but their sense of patriotism has never waned, which is, I guess, a good thing because the US definitely needs someone to do that. The only thing is, how does it impact the commercial side? You know, that stringent focus that no matter what product that we build, there has to be a situation where that product, the use case originates from like the military context. You know, like, I don't know. I don't know.
I think the thing is, like, we have to understand that majority of the tech that consumers and the commercial side gets all comes from military-based testing. So anything you currently have, GPS, all these Tinder apps, finding mates, all that crap was existing because of all the tech that was actually advanced, and then testing was done in the military side. So Palantir having that advantage at that top, allowing it to scale down, commercial is a bit of a joke compared to what they're doing in the military side right now, because the actual product is being required. So that should be the conviction rate of a lot of people to realize. But I'm just, let me, like, I'll give you another example. SpaceX, we can come out and say, okay, it's hard to get into government, but if you get in the government, and we all know the budget of DoD, it's not small, it's huge. But if you get in the government, like Karp said, 2 years from now, they'll be talking about the revenue from the government that is never going to go away, which is ideally never going to go away. So you're always not going to have an issue with money. And with that funding that you're getting from the government, you can continue to grow your commercial side. Example of the Model S for Tesla.
It's a good point.
Sold the big models, came down to the Model 3. SpaceX launched the most complicated problem, reverse landing a rocket, and now you got all these contracts. Peter Thiel and Elon have been known to do the complicated things from the beginning so they can do the more simple things later. That's how you scale a company. You don't scale a company by selling steak dinners, as Karp says, making a product so easy to sell, because that only goes certain length. You can't go too far with that. You have to do the complicated things. And the whole 0 to 1 book is all about solving the problem that nobody else is solving. And government is that problem. It was very hard to get into them, and that's why they're getting in there.
And I think building on top of that, I think one thing that people don't like to think about is, and this is, I get the Palantirians are going to be very upset with me by saying this, but this is more Silicon Valley-esque than I think a lot of people will give them credit for, is so many of these companies have tripped straight on their face, but you don't remember the failures because they've been so successful at the things that they've been successful at. Think about how many divisions Google has shut down over the years from their ventures. Think about how many products have failed from Apple. Think about how many products have failed from Microsoft. But people don't remember that because now they're doing Microsoft 365 and it's making them however much, and they're doing Azure and it's making however much. These companies have been around for 40 years. They've tripped and fell on their face where they were selling PCs. Then they've completely transitioned to cloud and things of the like. Amazon didn't stop at selling books because they were making good margin. They were saying, well, we could sell books and look how well we're doing. What else can we sell? And they failed and they failed and they failed, but they continue to focus on something and hyper focus on customer satisfaction. And Palantir is no different. Their goal is obviously Western success, and that, you know, is allowing them to have that ability to fail and fail and fail. And I think somebody said it perfectly in the chat, is like, you have the ability to fail, but the biggest thing about companies, which I think sometimes people don't realize, is like companies that are in their maturity are just focusing on reaping as much profit as possible. But when you stop really focusing on continuing to grow, continue to innovate, is really when the company starts to die. And you're giving Palantir that ability to figure out, hey, this is something that we can scale and we can make profit from this, but we're still going to create Meta Constellation. We're still going to create these other products because that's why we're here. We're here to help the West succeed. We're here to create software for the modern enterprise that people aren't willing to do, right? People aren't willing to sit with 40 different industries and say, how can we help you create whatever software that you need to be as successful as possible? And it's the modern transition of what Microsoft did. Microsoft created a product, of suite of products that were able to help the enterprises back then. But it's gotten to a limit, which is where Palantir has now come in and been like, what can we do to create customized software? Not something that's ready off the shelf that you can just plug and use for something that might be good for something that's a round hole, but here's a square peg that you might be able to get 80% of what you need. Palantir is like, no, we want to give you 100% what you need, and we'll literally sit with you until we get it. And anyway, so
and
I love that little clip that you played. It kind of gets you to think they're so different from the Patriot perspective and how they're kind of operating now versus where they kind of came from, but they're still at their heart Silicon Valley-esque, because all these companies had their renaissance moment like Palantir is kind of going through at this moment.
What's interesting
hold on,
is
real quick. Building off of Grogu and Matt, and then Chris, I'm gonna let you respond. I'm gonna be really quick on this. That also is, I think, going against your point, Chris, about government is whatever. Like, they are the only company that is actually true to that mission. Like, when Karp says we're here to protect the West, he's not bullshitting. He's not saying that for play. He actually means that. That has to translate to business value. Like, I think based on all the analysis Grogu and Matt just gave, that idea that you are actually there to protect, that's why you didn't work with Russia and China, that will lead to business value. It will subsidize the commercial growth, as the Tesla example Grogu just gave. And that has to be something that is a part of the moat, just based on the fact that the philosophy that they built the company with is so endearing and patriotic, as you said, that even if it's not the deal value, it is the ability for them to grow while they have that sticky revenue on the side that I think makes it attractive to still work with the government.
So I would say, historically, if you go back into the 50s, 60s, one of the things is majority of Silicon Valley was actually developed because of government funding in military stuff, right? So if you look at the transistor, the Silicon Valley is what it is today because all of the spending that the government did on military hardware and literally the space race. So there's no denying that early starts for most successful industries have typically come from the government side. The problem that I think Palantir ran into in the 2000s to the 2020s was that they ended up supporting the US government during a time when there was still a lot of controversy surrounding all the military stuff. Like I was in the military. I saw the dramatic drop. And this is what happened in the early years of like 2001. If you said anything anti-patriotic, bro, people came after you like there was no tomorrow. And then towards like 2010s and 2011. I remember people were just like anti-war everything. And by 2017, 2018, it was almost like if you support the US government, you're supporting baby killers and child killers. Like literally, oh, Palantir's that company that helps target innocent children in Afghanistan using predator drones. Like that's what ended up happening. Right now, I think this is going to sound a little bit kind of cruel, but it's the truth, so I'll say it. We're going back to a world where we know who the bad guys are. We know that the Russians are the bad guys. We know Chinese are the bad guys. And I don't think that's an undeniable fact, whether you're a Democrat or whether you're a Republican. Like, we need enemies. And guess what? Palantir is on the forefront of fighting these enemies. I think when Palantir was around trying to defeat terrorism, it almost felt like Palantir was supporting the unjust occupier in Afghanistan and Iraq, because a lot of people felt that way, right? Even people in other parts of the world. Now the U.S. is like starting to like get its mojo back on the international stage, saying, "Look, at least they're helping defeat the Russians, helping defeat the Chinese in certain regards." We're getting back to the point where we're the heroes again, and Palantir is, because of their affiliation with things, they're the heroes, right? And hopefully that translates into once again an industry that's supportive of Palantir going into the future. But I do agree with you, Grogu. A lot of companies got their start working with the government, and Silicon Valley kind of deviated away from that, where before you needed a lot of money coming in from the government in order to get your company started up into a point where you could make a commercial product. But that all kind of flipped the script after like venture capital really took off in the 2000s, where now you didn't need the government to come in and, give you that early business. Instead, you had these venture capital firms do it. And of course, the enterprises where you could scale. So a lot of companies benefited from that. But I think we're probably transitioning into a world where you have money from both the government side and you've got money from VC funds at the same time. So there's a lot of capital for new development and new industries. And I think that's one of the things that we should all be bullish on going into the future, which is literally there's a lot of capital sitting on the sidelines. So if people have good ideas that are worth pursuing, like in the next 5 years, I think there will be more Fortune 500 companies that get developed than a lot of people are realizing. And it's going to be, and I think the industries that are really going to be there are things surrounding space. I think space is the next big thing. AI is the next big thing.
But see, that's the thing. If space, AI, defense, these are the next big things, and then Grogu, you can go. I feel like Palantir is that prime candidate.
No, that's exactly my point. That you want to be invested in a company that has its tentacles already in those industries.
In the company, then, Chris? Why aren't you invested?
Well, I am through my wife now.
No, not your wife. We need your,
I'm making too much money. I'm making too much money, bro. I'm making too much money.
You're making it on that consumer internet shit Carp was talking about with Meta. He's calling you out on this.